The security consultant. Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Council's crystalline chamber, her battered leather jacket and cargo pants, a stark contrast to the ethereal architecture surrounding her. The assembled alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their environmental pods as she casually tossed a small metal sphere from hand to hand. To them, she looked less like the renowned security consultant they'd hired and more like someone who'd wandered in from a cargo bay. "Distinguished members of the council," she began, catching the sphere mid-toss, "your defense systems are garbage." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated protests. First Speaker Vox Nil's tentacles writhed in agitation, their bioluminescent patterns flashing warning signals. "Ms. Chen, you were hired to audit our systems, not insult them. The Unified Defense Network is the most sophisticated and predictable system in the galaxy," Sarah finished, finally pocketing the sphere. "That's exactly the problem. You've built the equivalent of a fortress with perfectly straight walls, perfectly regular patrols, and perfectly documented protocols. And you know what humans call that?" She grinned. "Target practice." A Meridian diplomat, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns of disapproval, chimed in. "Our defensive algorithms were developed by the finest minds from 1,000 worlds. They account for every possible scenario. Every logical scenario," Sarah corrected. "But security isn't about logic. It's about chaos, unpredictability. The kind of lateral thinking that makes a thief try to break in through the roof because everyone's watching the doors." She pulled out a tablet and projected a holographic display of the Council's defense grid. "Watch this." With a few swipes, she created a simulation of the network's standard response protocols. The display showed waves of automated defenses responding to various threats in perfect mathematical precision. "Beautiful, isn't it? Like a dance. Now, let me show you what happened when I tested it yesterday." The simulation changed. This time, the attack pattern was erratic, almost nonsensical. Defensive systems focused on obvious threats while smaller, seemingly random intrusions slipped through gaps created by the very precision of the response protocols. Within moments, the entire network was compromised. "I didn't hack your system," Sarah explained as the council members watched in horror. "I confused it. Humans excel at that. We're the species that once repelled an invasion by rickrolling the alien communication networks. We defeated an AI by convincing it to calculate pi using interpretive dance." First Speaker Vox Nil's tentacles had stopped writhing, now coiled tight in contemplation. "You're suggesting we need human unpredictability." "I'm suggesting you need humans, period. Your current security thinks in straight lines because that's how most species think. But humans." Sarah pulled out the metal sphere again, but this time pressed a hidden switch. It unfolded into a complex geometric shape that seemed to bend in impossible ways. "We think in squiggles. Sometimes we don't think at all. That's our superpower." A quantum intelligence representative, their holographic form flickering with calculation patterns, spoke up. "Statistical analysis suggests human security measures have a 47% higher failure rate than standard protocols." Sarah laughed. "Exactly. We fail better than anyone else in the galaxy. And because we fail so much, we've learned more ways to prevent failure than any other species. We don't just think outside the box. We forget the box exists and build something better out of its pieces." She walked to the center of the chamber, her boots echoing on the crystalline floor. "Your current defense system is perfect, and that's its biggest flaw. It can be studied, predicted, and eventually defeated. But humans, we're messy, we're chaotic. We're the species that weaponize cat videos and turn social awkwardness into an authentication protocol. What exactly are you proposing?" Vox Nil asked, their bioluminescence now showing patterns of cautious interest. "Let me assemble a team. Human security specialists, hackers, and lateral thinkers. We'll rebuild your defense network from the ground up, incorporating the one thing no other species has mastered: controlled chaos. The chamber fell silent as the council members communicated through their various methods: chemical signals, quantum entanglement, and old-fashioned eye contact. Finally, Vox Nil spoke again. The Council has concerns about placing our security in the hands of a species known for. They paused, searching for the diplomatic term. Creative destruction. Sarah's smile widened. That's exactly why you should trust us. Who better to protect you from chaos than the species that breeds it? Besides, she added, tossing the geometric puzzle from hand to hand again, I already have access to all your systems. The council erupted once more, but this time in alarm. Vox Nil's tentacles flared. Impossible. How? I walked in through the front door this morning. Convinced your eye I was a maintenance bot, and it gave me admin access because I told it a joke about binary. That's the kind of thinking you're up against. The kind of thinking you need on your side. As the council chambers descended into urgent deliberation, Sarah Chen stood quietly, still playing with her puzzle. She knew she had them. After all, there's nothing more convincing than demonstrating exactly how vulnerable someone is, and then offering to protect them from people just like you. The future of galactic security was about to get a lot more interesting, and a lot more human. The impossible breach. 3 months after Sarah Chen's unconventional presentation to the Galactic Council, alarms blared through the crystalline spires of Central Command. The impossibly elegant architecture, designed to channel both light and data, now pulsed with urgent red warnings. Sarah sprinted through the corridors, her boots leaving scuff marks on the pristine floors that made the maintenance AIs shudder. Talk to me, AI. She called out to the station's eye assistant, a system she'd personally modified to be less predictable and more human-like in its thinking patterns. The breach is weird, AI responded, using the colloquialisms Sarah had taught it. They're not following any known attack pattern. It's like they're playing hopscotch through our defense grid. Sarah skidded to a stop before the main security hub, where first speaker Vox Nil and several council members had already gathered. The massive holographic display showed their defense network, her defense network, lighting up like a Christmas tree gone wrong. This shouldn't be possible, the quantum intelligence representative stated, their holographic form flickering rapidly with calculations. The new protocols have randomization factors built in. No logical sequence code. That's just it, Sarah interrupted, her fingers flying over the control panel. This isn't logical. Look at the pattern. She highlighted several points of intrusion on the display. They're not trying to find weaknesses in the system. They're creating them through controlled chaos. Vox Nil's tentacles curled in concern. Explain. Sarah pulled up multiple data streams, showing the attack pattern from different angles. See these small breaches? They're distractions, but not in the way you'd expect. Each one is deliberately strange enough to make our adaptive systems focus on understanding the method rather than stopping the intrusion. It's like, she paused, searching for an analogy the aliens would understand, like throwing a puzzle at a guard instead of a weapon. The guard gets so interested in solving the puzzle that they forget to watch the door. Only humans would think to weaponize curiosity, Araya commented dryly. Sarah's hands froze over the controls. Exactly. Only humans. She straightened up, her expression grim. We're not dealing with standard pirates or even organized crime. These are humans, probably ex-military or security specialists. The chamber fell silent except for the continued wail of alarms. The implications were clear. Humans had become both the shield and the sword of galactic security. How do you know? Asked a Meridian representative, their crystalline form clouded with worry. Because I recognize some of these techniques. That data loop there. It's a modified version of something I developed 5 years ago. And that vulnerability they're exploiting in the quantum communications, it's not really a vulnerability. It's a feature we built in for maintenance, but they're using it in a way only a human would think to try. Sarah pulled out her ever-present metal puzzle, fingers working it through complex configurations as her mind raced. They're not just good. They're innovative, creative. They're treating our security systems like a playground instead of a fortress. Can you stop them? Vox Nil demanded. Stop them? No. Sarah's face broke into a fierce grin. But I can play their game better than they can. Araya, initiate Protocol Wonderland. Protocol Wonderland. The AI's voice carried a note of anticipation. Are you sure? That's still in testing, and the simulations suggest a 60% chance of total chaos. That's the point. Sarah's fingers flew across the controls again. Our attackers think they're the only ones who can be unpredictable. Time to show them what organized chaos really looks like. The holographic display erupted in a cascade of seemingly random changes. Defense systems began operating on protocols that changed every few seconds. Communication channels started broadcasting nonsense data mixed with crucial information. Security barriers appeared in impossible configurations. What are you doing? The quantum intelligence representative's form was now flickering so fast it was barely visible. Fighting fire with fire, Sarah replied, still working her puzzle with one hand while controlling the defense grid with the other. They want to use human unpredictability against us. Fine. Let's show them what happens when we embrace it fully. On the display, the attack patterns began to falter. The intruders, faced with a defense system that now operated on dream logic rather than mathematical principles, started making mistakes. They're trying to predict what we'll do next, Sarah explained, watching the data streams with satisfaction. But you can't predict nonsense. That's why I named it Protocol Wonderland. We're all mad here. Suddenly, the attack signals began to retreat. One by one, the intrusion points winked out as the attackers withdrew, leaving behind only traces of their presence. They're running, Araya announced, a hint of smugness in its artificial voice. No, Sarah corrected, her expression serious. They're regrouping. This was just a test. They wanted to see how we'd react. She turned to face the council members. And now they know we have a human security chief who's willing to throw out the rulebook entirely. Vox Nil's tentacles showed patterns of both concern and curiosity. Is this good news or bad news? Both, Sarah answered, finally solving her puzzle only to immediately start reconfiguring it. The good news is we proved we can counter their methods. The bad news. She looked up at the slowly stabilizing display. This is just the beginning. They'll be back, and next time, they'll be ready for chaos. And we'll be ready for them, Araya added. Sarah nodded, but her mind was already racing ahead to the next challenge. In a galaxy where humans had become both the ultimate defense and the ultimate threat, the only winning move was to be the most unpredictable player on the board. Call my team, she ordered. All of them. If we're going to be ready for round 2, we need to start thinking even further outside the box. She paused, then grinned. In fact, let's forget the box exists. Time to rewrite the rules of engagement. Above them, the crystalline chamber slowly returned to its normal serene glow, but everyone present knew that serenity was now just an illusion. The real game was just beginning. Project Mirror. The emergency meeting chamber of Central Command looked more like a college dorm room than a military facility. Sarah Chen had insisted on the redesign, claiming that creativity flows better in chaos. Scattered tablets displaying security feeds competed for space with empty coffee cups and half-eaten snacks from a dozen worlds. In the center of it all, Sarah's team of human specialists sprawled in various states of focused disorder. They're us, Maya Rodriguez announced, her cybernetic eye whirring as she analyzed attack patterns from the recent breach. The former black hat hacker turned security specialist had been reviewing the data non-stop for 48 hours. Not just human. They're military-trained security specialists. Like us. Technically, we're ex-military, drawled Jack Harper from his upside-down position in a gravity-defying chair. The former Special Forces operative had a talent for finding weaknesses in physical security systems, usually by exploiting them personally. and I'm pretty sure I recognize some of these tactics. Remember the Centauri Bank job 5 years ago? Sarah, who had been absent-mindedly solving and scrambling her geometric puzzle, suddenly sat up straight. The one where the thieves got in by convincing the security system they were part of a scheduled fire drill, and then used the emergency protocols to lock out the real security team, Jack confirmed. Classic human thinking. Why break through a wall when you can convince someone to open the door? First speaker Vox Nil, who had been observing the humans with a mixture of fascination and concern, finally spoke up. Their tentacles moved in patterns that suggested deep unease. You seem to admire these criminals. Know your enemy, Sarah replied, but then corrected herself. No, that's not quite right. Know yourself. These attackers think like us because they are us, and that's exactly why we're going to catch them. She stood and walked to the central holographic display, currently showing a three-dimensional map of known pirate activities in the sector. We've been approaching this wrong. We've been trying to predict what they'll do next, but humans are inherently unpredictable. So instead, we need to think about what we would do in their position. Project Mirror, Maya said suddenly, her cybernetic eye glowing with excitement. We don't try to counter their moves. We anticipate them by making the same moves first. Exactly. Sarah began manipulating the display, highlighting various security checkpoints and patrol routes. Araya, show us the pattern of attacks over the last 3 months, overlaid with standard response protocols. The AI complied, and the hologram filled with intersecting lines of force and counterforce. The attacks appear random, Araya observed, but humans rarely do anything truly random. We just make it look random, Jack added, finally sitting upright. There's always a pattern, even if the pattern is deliberately breaking patterns. Sarah nodded. And that's our advantage. We don't need to predict their next move. We just need to understand their style. Maya, what would you do if you were trying to breach the quantum vault? The hacker's cybernetic eye whirred through calculations. I'd probably try to create a feedback loop in the quantum authentication process. Make the system question its own reality. Exactly what I'd do, Sarah agreed. So we don't defend against that specific attack. We make it impossible for them to even think about trying it. We change the game before they can play it. Vox Nil's tentacles writhed in confusion. This makes no sense. How can you defend against attacks that haven't happened? Welcome to human security, Jack grinned, where the best defense is a good offense against yourself. Sarah began rapidly inputting commands into the system. Araya, initiate Project Mirror protocols. Full spectrum deployment. Warning, the AI responded. Project Mirror will require fundamental restructuring of all security systems. Estimated completion time, 72 hours. Probability of unexpected side effects, 89%. Perfect, Sarah said. If we can't predict what our own security systems will do, neither can they. The holographic display erupted into a cascade of changing protocols and shifting defense patterns. Traditional security checkpoints began moving randomly through space. Authentication systems started requiring answers to paradoxical questions. Even the physical architecture of Central Command began subtly shifting, its crystalline structure reorganizing itself according to algorithms based on human dream patterns. This is madness, Vox Nil declared, their bioluminescence flashing warning patterns. Exactly, Sarah replied with a fierce grin. That's why it'll work. We're not just thinking outside the box anymore. We're destroying the concept of boxes entirely. Every security measure, every protocol, every response is now based on human intuition rather than logic. Maya's artificial eye was practically strobing with excitement. We're essentially creating a defense system that operates on human chaos theory. It's beautiful. It's insane, Jack corrected, which means it's exactly what we need. Sarah picked up her geometric puzzle, now modified to change its solution pattern every time it was solved. The pirates think they have an advantage because they understand human thinking, but they've forgotten the most important thing about humans. What's that? Vox Nil asked, their tentacles now showing patterns of reluctant fascination. We're at our most dangerous when we're competing with ourselves. Sarah tossed the puzzle to Jack, who caught it without looking. Project Mirror isn't just a defense system. It's a challenge. And humans can never resist a good challenge. In the holographic display, Central Command security systems continued their transformation into something that defied conventional logic. It was no longer a fortress. It was a living puzzle, constantly rearranging itself according to the chaotic patterns of human creativity. Now, Sarah announced, her eyes gleaming with anticipation, we wait for them to notice what we've done. And when they do, she trailed off, letting the implications hang in the air. They won't be able to resist trying to solve it, Maya finished. And that's when we'll have them, Jack added. Above them, the crystalline architecture of Central Command hummed with new energy as Project Mirror came fully online. The greatest security system in the galaxy was now powered by humanity's greatest strength, its beautiful, dangerous unpredictability. The trap was set. All they had to do now was wait for someone to try and solve the puzzle. The Hunter's Game. 3 weeks after Project Mirror's activation, Sarah Chen sat cross-legged on her office floor, surrounded by holographic displays showing security feeds from across Central Command. Each screen displayed a different aspect of their transformed defense system, now operating on principles that made perfect sense to humans and drove every other species to the brink of confusion. "They're here," Araya announced without preamble. The AI's voice carried a note of excitement it had definitely not been programmed with originally. Sarah didn't look up from the ancient Rubik's Cube she was solving blindfolded. "I know. They've been here for 6 hours." She twisted the cube one final time and removed the blindfold. Perfect solution. "They're good. Really good." Maya burst into the office, her cybernetic eye rapidly cycling through spectrum analyses. "Sarah, we've got weird energy signatures in sections 7 through 12. There? She paused, staring at her commander's calm demeanor. "You already know." Of course she knows. Jack called from his position in the ceiling vent, a place he claimed helped him think better. She probably knew they were coming before they did. Sarah finally stood, placing the solved cube on her desk next to a collection of impossible puzzles. "They're not trying to break in," she explained, walking to the main display. "They're trying to understand, just like we would." The screen showed various sections of Central Command, each operating under Project Mirror's chaos protocols. Security checkpoints appeared and disappeared randomly. Authentication systems asked questions that changed meaning based on the time of day. Even the physical structure of the station seemed to drift and flow like a liquid crystal. "Look here," Sarah pointed to a particular section where the energy readings were slightly off. "They're not attacking the system. They're playing with it, testing it, learning it, just like we would." Maya realized, her cybernetic eye whirring as it processed the implications. Exactly. Sarah's fingers danced across the control panel, making subtle adjustments to Project Mirror's parameters. "They're treating our security system like a puzzle because that's what it is. We turned galactic security into the ultimate game, and now they can't resist trying to solve it." Jack dropped down from the ceiling vent, landing silently. "So what's our play? We know they're here. They probably know we know they're here. We invite them to play." Sarah answered, a mischievous glint in her eye. She pressed a series of commands into the system. "AI, initiate protocol tea party." The AI actually chuckled, another trait it had picked up from its human handlers. "Protocol tea party. Are you sure that's wise? Wisdom is overrated. Sometimes you need to be a little mad." Sarah turned to her team. "Get ready. Things are about to get interesting." Throughout Central Command, security protocols began to shift again, but this time with a purpose. Hidden within the chaos were patterns, subtle, complex patterns that only another human security specialist would recognize. It wasn't an invitation to break in, it was an invitation to solve the puzzle. "You're challenging them," Maya said, watching the patterns emerge and dissolve on her displays. "You're turning this into a game of competing security experts." "Because that's what humans do best," Sarah confirmed. "We don't just solve puzzles. We turn everything into a puzzle to be solved. And right now, we're creating the most interesting puzzle these pirates have ever seen." The response came faster than even Sarah had anticipated. New energy signatures appeared across the station as the intruders began actively engaging with the system rather than just observing it. They weren't trying to break in anymore. They were accepting the challenge. "They're good," Jack observed, watching the pirates navigate through the deliberately created chaos. "That sequence there, that's military-grade problem-solving." "Better than good," Sarah agreed, her fingers flying over the controls as she responded to each move the pirates made. "They're exactly who I thought they were." She pulled up a specific security feed, zooming in on a pattern of system queries that looked almost familiar. Maya's cybernetic eye suddenly locked onto the display. "Wait, that signature. That's Captain Laura Chen." Sarah finished, a complex mix of emotions crossing her face. "My sister." The office fell silent as the implications sank in. On the displays, the game continued to unfold as two groups of humanity's best security experts engaged in an elaborate dance of chaos and control. "Your sister?" Jack asked carefully. "The one who disappeared with half of Earth's quantum security protocols 3 years ago." "Yes." Sarah's fingers never stopped moving across the controls, matching her sister's moves step for step. "I always wondered what she did with them. Now we know." "This isn't just a game anymore," Maya realized. "This is a family reunion." Sarah's lips curved into a smile that held equal parts affection and determination. It was never just a game. Laura always said that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to turn anything into a competition, even galactic security. On the screens, the intricate dance continued. Each move by the pirates was met with a countermove from Sarah's team, creating patterns of such beautiful complexity that even ARIA had given up trying to predict what would happen next. "So what's the play?" Jack asked, his hand unconsciously moving to where his weapon would be if Sarah allowed guns in her office. "We keep playing," Sarah answered, pulling out her geometric puzzle and beginning a new configuration. "Because that's what humans do. We play games until we find a way to win." She paused, watching a particularly elegant sequence from her sister's team. "Or until we find something more interesting than winning." The crystalline architecture of Central Command hummed with energy as two teams of humanity's finest security experts continued their elaborate game of cat and mouse. But which side was the cat, and which was the mouse? In true human fashion, even that distinction had become part of the puzzle. And somewhere in the station, Sarah knew, her sister was smiling too, equally caught up in the pure joy of the challenge. Because in the end, that's what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. They didn't just solve puzzles, they lived for them. The game was far from over. In fact, it was just getting interesting. Evolution of trust. The heart of Central Command had transformed into a technological wonderland where reality and chaos danced on the edge of comprehension. In the center of her office, Sarah Chen stood surrounded by holographic displays, showing the most complex game of security and counter-security ever played in galactic history. "Your sister's team just breached Section 44, Araya reported, its voice carrying a note of admiration. "But in doing so, they've exposed themselves to the quantum feedback loop in Section 45. "Of course they did," Sarah replied, her fingers working her geometric puzzle with practiced ease. "Because they know I know they did it on purpose." She made a slight adjustment to the security protocols, adding another layer to the already Byzantine game they were playing. "Maya, Jack, are you in position? Ready and waiting." Maya's voice came through, her cybernetic eye undoubtedly processing every quantum fluctuation in her sector. "Though I'm still not sure if we're trying to catch them or recruit them." "Yes," Sarah answered cryptically, watching as new patterns emerged in the security feeds. First, Speaker Vox Nil's holographic form materialized in the office, their tentacles moving in patterns of extreme agitation. The council demands an explanation. Security Chief Chen. Our sensors show multiple breaches throughout the station, yet you haven't activated any containment protocols. Because containment isn't the goal, Sarah explained, her eyes never leaving the displays. Understanding is. She pointed to a particular pattern of system queries. Look at how they're moving through our defenses. They're not trying to break anything. They're testing, learning, improving. They're pirates. Vox Nil's bioluminescence flashed in patterns of frustration. They're innovators, Sarah corrected. Just like us. They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible with security systems, forcing us to evolve faster than we ever could on our own. She smiled as another series of elegant security probes appeared on her screens. Laura always was a good teacher. As if on cue, a new message appeared across all displays. Ready to stop playing games, little sister. Sarah's smile widened. Area. Open a direct channel. It's time for the family reunion. The air in the center of the office shimmered, and a holographic figure materialized. Captain Laura Chen, looking exactly as she had 3 years ago, when she disappeared with Earth's most advanced security protocols. Her military uniform had been replaced with something more practical, but her eyes held the same fierce intelligence Sarah remembered. You turned galactic security into a puzzle box, Laura said by way of greeting. I couldn't resist. I knew you couldn't. That's why I did it. Sarah set down her puzzle and faced her sister. The quantum protocols you stole, you've improved them, made them more adaptive, more human. And you've done the same here. Laura gestured at the organized chaos around them. Project Mirrored is beautiful. It's security that thinks like humans instead of machines. Vox Nil's hologram flickered between them. This is unprecedented. We cannot simply. Actually, Sarah interrupted, we can. Because this was never about catching pirates or preventing breaches. It was about evolution. She turned to her sister. You didn't steal those protocols to sell them or exploit them. You took them to perfect them, to prove that human unpredictability could be a feature, not a bug. Laura nodded. And you built Project Mirror for the same reason. You turned security into a game because games are how humans learn best. She paused, looking around at the crystalline chamber with its countless flowing data streams. The galaxy needs both of us, the defenders and the testers, the ones who build the walls and the ones who find the holes. The Council will never agree to this, Vox Nil protested, but there was a note of uncertainty in their bioluminescent patterns. They already have, Sarah revealed. They just don't know it yet. For the past 3 weeks, Project Mirror has been incorporating every probe, every test, every creative solution your team developed, Laura. And I'm betting you've been doing the same with our countermeasures. Of course, Laura confirmed. It's the human way. Compete, learn, improve, repeat. We've probably advanced galactic security protocols by decades in less than a month. Sarah turned to Vox Nil's increasingly agitated hologram. This is what humanity brings to galactic security, not just unpredictability, but the ability to turn that chaos into growth. We don't just think outside the box. We reshape it, rebuild it, and then find new ways to break it again. Because that's how we make it stronger, Laura added. The sisters shared a look of perfect understanding. In that moment, the true evolution of galactic security was born, not as a perfect, unchanging system, but as a living, growing thing that learned from every challenge and adapted to every threat. So, Sarah said, picking up her geometric puzzle once more, ready to make it official. The Council gets the most advanced security system in history, constantly evolving thanks to regular testing from your team. And we get to keep playing the most interesting game in the galaxy, Laura finished. Legal penetration testing with the highest stakes imaginable. Vox Nil's hologram flickered as they processed this unprecedented proposal. You want us to hire the pirates who've been attacking us. Not hire, Sarah corrected. Partner with. Because in the end, that's humanity's greatest contribution to galactic security. We understand that the best way to defend against chaos is to embrace it, channel it, and let it make us stronger. As if to emphasize her point, the crystalline architecture of Central Command hummed with new energy as Project Mirror began incorporating the latest round of improvements born from the sisters' elaborate game. The galaxy's most effective defense, Laura mused, and its most interesting challenge, Sarah added. Above them, the infinite dance of order and chaos continued, now guided by the most unpredictable force in the universe, human creativity unleashed in the service of something greater than itself. The game would never truly end. But then again, that was exactly the point.